The United States Congress is well known for being filled with partisanship and the parties disagreeing on just about every high-profile bill. While there is fighting between parties, there's also oftentimes disagreement within the parties, especially in the House, which makes sense since the House consists of 435 people, with many being from districts that are so Democrat or Republican that the candidate can be as far left or right as they want, since they're from the party that will inevitably win. These differences in beliefs within the parties has led to the creation of different groups of somewhat like-minded members called caucuses. Both the Democrats and Republicans have caucuses within their respective parties. The vast majority of caucus members are in the House of Representatives, with only a few senators being in congressional caucuses. In this video, we'll discuss the more ideological conferences, not the caucuses that are focused on a specific issue, such as the LGBT caucus or the Medicare for All caucus. From the Democratic Party, we'll look at the Blue Dog, New Democrat, and Progressive caucuses, and from the Republican Party, we'll be looking at the Freedom Caucus, the Republican Study Group, the Tuesday Group, and the almost formed America First Caucus. The first caucus we'll be looking at is the Blue Dog Coalition from the Democratic Party. This caucus mainly consists of centrist Democrats who are more willing to compromise with the Republicans in the U.S. House. They are more fiscally conservative, but they have no official social issue positions as a caucus. Members can be more like Stephanie Murphy from Florida's 7th District, where they are more socially liberal, while others can be like Dan Lipinski of Illinois' 3rd District, who are more socially conservative. The caucus currently has 90 members and is led by Ed Case of Hawaii's 1st District, the aforementioned Stephanie Murphy, and Tom O'Halloran of Arizona's 1st District. This is a lot fewer than the number of members it had during its peak in the 111th Congress when it had 59 members. It then lost over half of its members, losing 33 of them in the 2010 midterms as the GOP flipped 63 seats in the House of Representatives to take control of it for the next 8 years. Many of the members in the 111th Congress for the Blue Dog Coalition were from heavily Republican districts that were willing to vote for Democrats who were more moderate and centrist and sometimes even conservative. This is how in the 2008 election, for example, the Democrats were able to win 3 out of the 4 Arkansas seats, while Obama won not a single district in the state on the presidential level that year. With the rise in political polarization, a topic which you can learn more about on the Cynical Historians channel, people have become less and less willing to vote for candidates that aren't from their political party, which has led to it being more difficult for moderate and centrist candidates to win in districts that lean away from their party, except in a few cases, mainly in midterm elections. This is how the map went from looking like this in 2008 to looking like this now. All of this has contributed to the diminishing influence of the Blue Dog Coalition in the last few years. There's also the fact that less moderate candidates are starting to gain popularity too. In 2020, in Illinois' 3rd District, longtime incumbent Dan Lipinski, a conservative Democrat, lost the nomination in the primary to progressive Democrat Mary Newman. While it has definitely been less influential as a caucus in the last few years, the Blue Dog Coalition probably became more influential in the latest Congress since the Democrats only have the majority in the House by 4 seats. The GOP also has its own version of the Blue Dog Coalition, the Tuesday Group. This caucus is mainly made up of moderate Republicans, although it's debatable whether some of the members should actually be in this caucus. It currently has 24 members in the House of Representatives and is led by John Katko of New York's 24th District. This caucus, unlike many of the others in this video, has been around for a long time, since the 1960s, although its current form has been around since 1995. Most of the Democratic caucuses were actually formed in the 1990s as the country was getting more used to neoliberalism and Congresspeople actually wanted to be able to distinguish themselves from each other, seeming as the GOP and Democrats were actually quite similar at the time, while Republican caucuses were formed all through the years. There isn't a whole lot else to say about this group other than this is the current map of their membership in the 117th Congress. The New Democrats are the group that most Democrats belong to or could be grouped into. It's the most common caucus for them to be in if you don't account for dual membership in neither the Blue Dog or Progressive caucuses, and is the more moderate caucus in the House. This is the caucus that most progressives would say has the establishment Democrats in it. These Democrats are sometimes called Clinton Democrats because they were born during Bill Clinton's presidency and are neoliberal economically while being more socially liberal. Most Blue Dog Democrats and also some progressive Democrats are also in the New Democratic Caucus, so this map shows just the New Democrats that don't belong to either of the other caucuses in the US House. The caucus's total membership comes out to be 93 members, but only 70 of them are not in the Progressive or Blue Dog coalition as well. I spent more time calculating this number than I care to admit. They are currently chaired by Suzanne Delbene of Washington's 1st District. There are also a few notable absences on this map who you would probably expect to actually be in the New Democrat Caucus. The GOP's version of New Democrats, both in that they are the establishment Republicans and many of its members also belong to one of the other caucuses, is the Republican Study Committee. This caucus was originally founded in 1973 as a way to keep an eye on GOP leadership, which members of the committee thought was too moderate at the time. It was dissolved for a few years by Newt Gingrich of Georgia's 6th District in 1994, before being revived by Dan Byrne of Indiana's 5th and 6th District, depending on the decade, Sam Johnson of Texas's 3rd District, John Doolittle of California's 4th District, and Ernst Istook of Oklahoma's 5th District. It's currently led by Jim Banks of Indiana's 3rd District, and its current platform is mainly social and fiscal conservatism, along with the right to keep and bear arms. Most conservative Republicans are in this caucus, and because it is more of a catch-all group, there are many members in the RSC that are either in the Tuesday group or the Freedom Caucus as well. The Republican Study Committee is actually the largest caucus in the entire U.S. Congress, with 153 total members and 100 of them not belonging to another caucus. And just like the New Democratic Coalition, there are also some notable absences in this caucus. Many Democrats are not fans of the establishment Democrats and don't agree with them on many issues, especially on economics. These guys belong to the Congressional Progressive Caucus. This caucus's economic ideology is close to that of the New Dealers from the 1930s to 1970s. They were founded in 1991 when neoliberalism had become the dominant economic ideology in the US and was founded partially as a way to combat it. In most European countries, the members of the Progressive Caucus would likely belong to the center-left Social Democrat parties, such as the UK's Labour Party or Germany's SPD. They have been growing in membership in the US House since 1991, with it really gaining popularity and seats in 2016 and 2018, gaining 10 seats in 2016 and 18 in 2018. Currently, there are 90 members in the US House of Representatives, along with one senator, it's Bernie by the way, that are part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and is currently led by Pramila Jayapal of Washington's 7th District. It gained extra notoriety in 2018 when a group known as The Squad was elected, consisting of Ilhan Omar of Minnesota's 5th District, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan's 13th District, Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts' 7th District, and of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York's 14th District. In 2020, the caucus had a net loss of 6 seats, even after people like Cori Bush of Missouri's 1st District and Mary Newman of Illinois' 3rd District won their primaries against long-term incumbents. While it doesn't have the most influence in Congress right now, given recent trends, it might become the dominant Democrat caucus in the next 15 to 20 years. One Republican caucus you may have heard about or know about is the Freedom Caucus. This caucus is a very new one, being born out of the Tea Party movement that happened in the early 2010s, though the caucus itself didn't become a thing until 2015. This caucus is very conservative, very pro-gun, and very capitalist. I am not using the word libertarian anywhere in this video about them because American libertarians with a capital L are rather different from most other libertarians, mainly political compass ones. I point this out because one of the Freedom Caucus's ideologies is listed as libertarian conservatism. Essentially, these guys think that you should be able to have all the guns you want, but gay people are a problem and shouldn't be allowed to marry because they don't jive well with their religious conservatism. This caucus, unlike others, doesn't release an official list of members, meaning members have to outright say that they belong to this caucus, meaning there might be more members than we know of. There are most likely about 48 to 54 members of this caucus. Again, the exact number isn't 100% clear because the caucus doesn't officially announce its members. In a 2017 interview, former Republican House Speaker John Boehner criticized the caucus, saying, quote, "They can't tell you what they're for, they can tell you what they're against," end quote. Of course, being the most right-leaning caucus in the U.S. House, it and its members have been very staunch supporters of President Trump since his inauguration in 2017. Every single member voted against both of Trump's impeachments, and most of its members supported the removal of Liz Cheney as the House Republican Conference Chair, which as of June of 2021 is the third highest ranking GOP position in the House. The current chair of the caucus is Andy Biggs of Arizona's 5th District, who, we should note, was accused by Ali Alexander of helping him organize the rally on January 6th that preceded the insurrection, and is said to have agreed to do whatever possible to overturn the election results. For more information, check the Washington Post link in the description of the video. While the Freedom Caucus is the most right-leaning caucus that currently exists, another caucus that was even more right-wing was almost formed in April of 2021, the America First Caucus. This caucus was infamously almost started by Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia's 14th District, while Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida's 1st District had said he would join the caucus, and Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona's 4th District was reported as one of the founding members. The caucus ended up not officially getting made after intense backlash from liberals, progressives, and even some Republicans alike, such as House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Liz Cheney. The caucus was first revealed by the release of its platform statement by Punchbowl News, which is linked in the description below. Some highlights include believing that the 2020 election was stolen, believing America is strengthened by its common respect for uniquely Anglo-Saxon traditions and other nativist stuff, along with a lot of dog whistles, stating that America's infrastructure should be in a strictly European design, isolationism both militarily and when it comes to giving foreign aid, being against free trade and possibly using more dog whistles, more dog whistling including when in regards to education, and not understanding what Maoism is. With the backlash that happened immediately following the release of this document, Greene and the other members and potential members of the caucus announced that it wasn't actually happening and that the document was, quote, "a staff-level draft proposal from an outside group." Needless to say, this was a highly controversial caucus and most Americans did not like it. It also doesn't help that the phrase, "insert country here first," is often used by fascists and can be exemplified in the Hearts of Iron 4 Man the Guns DLC, in that if you want to make America fascist, you go down the path called America First. While the U.S. Congress is heavily partisan, people within each party often can't agree with each other, allowing them to create caucuses to have their own goals within the parties. And today, we looked at a few of the ideological caucuses, such as the Democrats' Blue Dog, New Democrat, and Progressive Caucuses, while looking at the GOP's Tuesday Group, Republican Study Committee, Freedom, and almost formed America First caucuses. These caucuses may disagree with each other within the parties, but the parties themselves are still ultimately rather united.